there's nothing bad about outsourcing. It's definitely something that can enhance your organization if you allow it.
And let me tell you, when budgets tighten and when people are looking around and trying to answer the question, how can we do better with less? What if the real question is, who can help us to do it better?
We're getting to the point where bosses just want solutions, right? And I think associations in particular, they want to focus on what they're good at. And the smarter these leaders get about, okay, my team is really good at this thing. Let's find a resource, and it doesn't have to be a full-time resource. Let's find a resource to help us look at something differently.
What are we going to do when some of the original sources of funding may have gone a different direction than we expected?
Provide that feedback to say, how can we become more lean, more efficient, do something new, anything like that to make work life easier.
We're talking about the powerful role that outsourcing plays in helping associations remain agile and aligned and impactful. Well, I actually wanted, so that in case people are not familiar with who you are and what you do, I wanted to start out jumping into a little bit of the background. And so I want to start with you, Dana, and then we'll go to you, Shameka. But the question is, what first drew each of you into the association and events world?
I was working for the Dallas Morning News, and this was a very long time ago, 25 years ago. And I was looking for opportunities that were related to the internet, right? Because the internet was coming, it was making such, it was a big deal. And so my very first job was with a trade shows company called the Expo Group, and I was the e-editor. Right. So that was a nice transition into this space. And just ever since then, I caught the bug and started doing events and trade shows and strategy for customers and marketing communications for the company. So I found that the mission-driven nature of associations and the leaders who run them are very much aligned with my personal belief system. And that's really what has made me specialize in working with associations and for associations.
Okay. And for you, Shameka, what's your story?
Slightly similar. I went to undergrad, and so I've known that I wanted to do events for a long time. I didn't know about associations, but I always knew I wanted to do events because I loved the power that they had in bringing people together. My undergrad, there were some racial tensions, which were not great. But when I hosted events, I was in our student activities board. That was the one time that I saw, like, wow, people of diverse backgrounds can come together and really enjoy each other, learn from one another. So I found the power of events. And when I learned more about associations, that's their exact draws. Like-minded people that come from diverse backgrounds. They want to make a difference in the world. They come to the events that I have the opportunity to create and take whatever they learn back to their communities. It's such a transformative thing. That's what led me to be in associations and stick with associations, and the power that they have. I just really appreciate.
Speaking of inspiration, I wanted to ask you about this topic of our day, right? Which is, we're talking about outsourcing and associations, and we have this outsourcing survey. And so I wanted to talk about the inspiration behind this. Now, I first heard about this concept, this idea from Dana. So Dana, I'm going to start with you, but what has surprised you most about what's not out there about this topic?
Yeah.
Also.
And this topic was really born with Shameka. Shameka had this idea. We ran into each other at a live event, right? We were at IMEX. Mm-hmm. And you shared the idea for this, and I thought, whoa, you're right. There's nothing out there. And that was first. And two is, we need to get KiKi L'Italien in on, right? So it was Shameka, having this idea that the data and the survey could move the needle for associations.
Yeah.
I think not only for associations. I mean, I will say the survey idea came from a place of self-preservation for me. I mean, of course, I have my own business, EventsNoire. This is what we do. And so I wanted to kind of see how are people outsourcing, specifically meetings, and then talking to Dana. It's like, yeah, actually, how are people out using just outsourcing as associations? I know what my clients are doing, but what is out there? What language can I utilize to partner more small businesses with associations, especially those that are having tight budgets, especially as we're seeing now with any recession indicators. Like, we can still provide the top level work, even though we might not be full-time staff. So what is currently being done, because I think that's something that was curious to me, and I'm sure would resonate with other association professionals to know, well, our colleagues are doing this, so it's okay. I think they might need a welcome to know, like, okay, there's data, there's support that, or outsourcing is supportive, it's beneficial. So I wanted to kind of just get something to hang my hat on when I was talking about my business and working with EventsNoire, to say there are actual benefits of outsourcing if you need to or if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was fascinated when I heard about this. So when Dana reached out and told me about it, and I'm starting to remember like the background that she was giving me. Now at this point, we've like pulled this survey together, we put it out there. But I remember when she first brought it up, and I thought, why isn't there more information? Like, why can't, like, I haven't seen anything like that. And everyone I know in the association industry, and I typically, like, I know when you use a word like everyone, it's like, it's not everyone, KiKi, but kind of, yeah, it is right now, because I can't think of an association that I've come across who isn't doing some kind of outsourcing.
Right.
And so it seems like really helpful information to know. It seems like important information to know, especially at a time when association executives are scratching their heads and saying, how can I do things differently? Because fill in the blank, because there are so many different reasons, so many different things have changed where associations are trying to either upskill employees, change technology. An old way of doing something has changed. They've had different types of changes come to their finances. So there's so many different reasons that I just find it fascinating. There's not more information out there. And before we went live today, Dana, you were talking about you were doing a little exploration, and what did you find?
It was, what I found was, and even before we started this, is no one's really looking at associations as a sector, right? Like, there's a lot of studies, outsourcing is a $500 billion business in the United States alone. Okay. But who's really looking at association sector? There was a 2015 study by Smith Buckland. And when I was preparing for this, discussion today, I went into my Perplexity AI large language model of choice and said, hey, like, can you pull some stats and information? And it went right to the web page that was created for this survey. Like, there's nothing else in the last 2 years that this AI model could go and pull information to help with the stats. So I have a lot of stats about outsourcing in general, but I do think that what we're doing with this study is getting it specifically into the sector that we serve.
I think so. I mean, I think that it was to me, it was incredible that we didn't have more data about this. And so, I started thinking, like, well, surely we reach out to the association space, we get some information in, and but then there's also a million different surveys that are out there. And so, like, breaking through out now, I'm like, yes, the marketing survey is really important. Yes, the membership survey over here is really important, but please pay attention to this one, people, because this is so important for us to get some information on, because we don't even have baseline information really to go off of for our sector. So to that end, can one of you speak to what you've found, what you've observed in your own outsourcing story with how you've been brought in to work with different organizations? And Shameka, I would like to talk with you first about this. Basically, to talk about, what has your experience been? What are maybe the top 3 services that associations who have worked with you to outsource something that they need to be done? What does that look like in your experience? And then I want to move to you, Dana, and for you to talk about your own.
Absolutely. For me and the clients that I get to serve and work with, Of course, we specialize in events, and so conferences, meetings, board retreats, all of that. And we run the gamut of from 0 to 100. If you're starting with nothing, we can start with strategy all the way through execution, or we just do specific sections. So talking to KiKi and seeing her this week at MMC in Tech, I was there supporting with registration. And that is one of my roles that people actually really love to see me at registration. I did not know this. People think that I'm like, that's our bread and butter, but registration is all that we do, but it's just another way to help and provide leverage to the team. And then we, of course, do full service events. So we'll be in Minneapolis, and it's a group that we worked with, did everything. But then we also do association management as well, because events for some organizations are such a large piece. And we also help manage and support with some membership as well. We have a graphics department on our team, so we have someone that also works with marketing. I find that those are the three things. So any element of events will be one. I will say marketing would be number two. Then any type of membership management has been number three in my space. And it's been really, really nice, really interesting. What I love about associations, just the breadth of them, that we can still support any of them. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be segmented depending on what your needs are.
And this is so interesting. When I get hired in as a consultant or an association or a company that's in that space that serves that space, is outsourcing their marketing communications, some change management. There's always a consultant running around with IT. There's often finance and payroll. Like those are some of the big ones that associations and companies are outsourcing. But what I've really found is we're getting to the point where bosses just want solutions, right? And I think associations in particular, they want to focus on what they're good at. And the smarter these leaders get about, okay, my team is really good at this thing. Let's find a resource, and it doesn't have to be a full-time resource. Let's find a resource to help us look at something differently. How can we, reimagine? I'm helping an association right now reimagine what their major trade show looks like, right? How they show up for their customers. Let's look at across the organization, how are our sales teams and our membership teams interacting with companies, right? Has anyone really looked at that from a bigger picture level? And I think the exciting part in that is that organizations can then discover time and cost savings that comes from outsourcing instead of hiring full time, reduce stress on their teams where they're like trying to work in the details of something and then also trying to elevate and think ahead. But I think that one of the values that outsourcing brings, and what I try and bring to my customers, is an improved focus on their strategic objectives, right? If you're hiring an outsourced resource, someone's writing that check every week, every month, or whatever it is, right? They're paying attention, right? I'm sure Shameka is seeing this too, is when she's hired to put on events, like there's someone who's really paying extra attention because it's not just part of the like normal flow of the workspace.
This is a conversation that I had with a few different people around associations. That I love associations, so please take no offense. I mean it positively. That there's a lot of doers. There are a lot of doers. They're doing the work. And because of how much work people are doing, especially during this time, they don't have the opportunity in time to strategize and think of something new, like you said, Dana. So therefore, that's where I find my role, or the role of a consultant or somebody coming in, to come in to have a fresh pair of eyes, provide that feedback to say, how can we become more lean, more efficient, do something new, surprise and delight, anything like that make work life easier, because people are just so used to doing, this is how it's always been done. We're not thinking creatively. We're just trying to get to the end. And so I think that's what our roles have been, by being able to be outsourced, to come in fresh and say, hey, let's do it this way without, all costs. We can kind of provide all of sort of the resources to say, this is what this would look like, cost savings by doing it this way.
I still find it fascinating that there can be these barriers for association leaders to sometimes let certain things go. And so my next question has to do with, what are some of the barriers that you've come across where, for whatever reason, it's been difficult for an association to decide to outsource something?
people stand in their own way sometimes, right? So what you were just, you and Shameka just said, like, sometimes you really have to like break out of the mold, like blue sky, think about it, of what, that's a barrier that I see is people just not willing to even think about something different. I actually had a phone call like that yesterday, right? It's like, no, like if I meet with you for half an hour, and that's why I'm so excited to have people take this survey too, is like ideas can come forth out of it. Right? You're going to get, when you take the survey, you're going to get the results, and there will be ideas in this insights report of here are the things that other people are paying outside resources to do. Right. Yeah. And, some of the questions that we designed the survey around were, how does it work best, right? Because the other thing I see organizations doing is, well, this consultant is actually speaking for me now, and they're inside of my email system, or they're inside of my spreadsheet system, or my OneDrive, right? Like, so that is a troublesome spot sometimes that needs, it's a hurdle that needs to be overcome, is the systems and what level of inclusion, right? Like, I have a client, and it's, on the bottom of my email, it says, Dana Freker Doody, and the organization name. And then it says a consultant for this organization, right? And that's how they help their community understand that this person's not fully employed, because that's important to them, that they understand, that their community understands the level at which this person is involved in the organization.
Right.
So that's, the systems, I think, has been a little bit of a hurdle sometimes.
I'll say for me and my experience, you touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to name it shame. The idea that staff can't do it themselves, and like, therefore, that is a struggle for some people to say, like, well, I have this staff, I pay them, they can't do it on their own. And I don't think it's that at all. Like we talked about, sometimes it's just kind of how to break the mold. Some staff might be burned out or just doing repetitive tasks and aren't able to elevate, as in speaking for events, elevate your event because they want to make sure the event's done right. But they might not have time to think creatively or strategically. And I think the thing I'm excited about the survey is like to share, like, other groups and organizations are outsourcing these things. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing bad about outsourcing. It's definitely something that can enhance your organization if you allow it. Most of my clients, I treat it as an extension of them. I have emails with them. I essentially try to function as part of the team as much as they would like me to be. And so it's something that I try to stay as engaged as they want me to be. If it's just work, that's fine. But how can we kind of work together? It's not an us versus them. Not trying to take anyone's role. That's also been something that people I've experienced where it's like, oh, well, you want to be the, chief meetings person here, and we don't have that. I'm like, no, I just want to be supportive. I really believe in it, the work that you're doing, and I think I can help elevate it. And so I think that's something that I have seen that has kind of been a hurdle, but those that have allowed me to come in have seen the benefit.
People just want the event to be right, right? And bosses just want solutions, right? So it's actually, I think, for some of these, manager and director level people working in associations, it may be bringing in an outsourced solution may be a new way of showing your value, right? It's saying to your leader, these are my high payoff activities, and I'm going to be focusing on these and advancing these initiatives. The one that has not had enough attention, I've brought you a solution.
Yes.
Right? It is an outside solution. I think that especially, people come into this space from such varied backgrounds that having this body of data will help them to position that exact type of thing to their boss. This is just, I want to focus on these high payoff things, right? And I've found the absolute best resource, and Shameka is going to be running our registration, right? Or EventsNoire is being hired for this piece so that we can focus on this thing.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's a way to level up and to meet, members' expectations, keep going higher and higher and higher. And for a lot of associations, the expectation that when you're a staffer there, that you're supposed to be wearing many different hats and able to do a lot of different things. Well, we all have been, and there's a limit though, right? You get to a certain point, and it's what can we do to make the experience better for the member, for the outcomes that we're really looking to achieve, without necessarily having to bring in a whole new technology sometimes, or a new person or a team of people. And there's just so much that you can do. And I think for a lot of for-profit businesses, outsourcing it's just kind of like, well, yeah, that you're going to have to do that in order to achieve things, because you can't hire endless amounts of people. But sometimes it can seem like a threat. And I've worked for associations where it was like, even a consultant coming in could sometimes seem threatening, but it's like, why are they coming in? We actually met recently, we being the Big Red M team, met recently and had a strategic planning, and a lot of the AEs got together, and they were sharing, well, for the best clients, the best engagements, those where they were both profitable, the client was happy, the AE was happy, everybody's happy. What were the main traits that we found in those situations? What made them work so well?
Yeah.
And trust was one, where the trust was, going both ways. And there was that shared communication. Shameka was talking about, you were talking about being a part, having an email address, right, with the associations, a lot of the associations that you work with. And that was also something that came up, where if you were being treated as part of the team, and Dana, you talked about like having that in your signature line, making it perfectly clear, like you are connected, you are part of the group, and this is your role. I think that there's a lot of trust that has to be there versus, what we saw, and maybe this isn't always the case, but for a lot of those relationships that were maybe the opposite, the ones that did not go as well, where it was not as effective, it seemed to be where the outsourced party was kept at arm's length and maybe not trusted as much, and the information didn't get shared as easily, because either one of the barriers we talked about, somebody felt threatened, or they didn't want to share, all of the data that they needed to. For some sort of element of trust seemed to be lacking. Have you all found that to be true too? Do those seem to ring true?
Definitely for me, I've had a client recently, or no longer a client, but that is literally how it would happen. It's just wanting to be there, wanting to be the resource that they did hire me for, to paid for, but didn't feel the need to give all of the details and all of the information, which just added a level of tension that was unnecessary, especially for me. I love to be just transparent. That's definitely a value that I have personally and professionally, that there's no reason for me to hide information from you. We can all do great business together if we all know what's going on. And there would be key elements that we're missing. And my goal is to make you look good as a consultant. And if I ever feel like I'm not in a position to help you do that, then I'm doing a disservice. So therefore, I've definitely had to part ways with clients after events, because there was just some level of like, I want to give you just enough, but not everything you need to be successful. And that was challenging.
Trust speeds the pace of business, right? I would think that one of the reasons, Shameka, that EventsNoire is so successful, and I think, one of the things that helps me in doing what I'm doing, is a personal ability to connect with people and win trust quickly. I'm working on a project now with an association, and I'm working across functions, with 20, 25 different parties. They didn't hire me. They didn't make that choice. Right. So I need to build relationships and create a level of trust with each one of them, because over the next, year, we're going to be working closely together on this project.
Have you ever been brought in when maybe it was like, they should have maybe kept this thing in-house, or, what is the sign maybe that it's like, yeah, let's go ahead and reach out for help. This is the right thing to do.
I think that, organizations need to look a little bit at kind of their philosophy on that, right? Is do they go with the players they have currently on their team? Or do they go with, like, if we start outsourcing this now, it doesn't mean you have to outsource it forever, right? So I think that's an important path that people need to understand as well. Like, you could even I actually working with another organization where, we signed a contract to outsource with a sales team, but one of the pieces of that contract is a coaching and a collaboration, so that the organization will then be able to run that function themselves. Right. So I do think that strategically looking ahead of time before entering an agreement like this is helpful to understand. Do you want to go with the players you have? Do you want to develop players, right, and use these resources to do that? Or do you want to just, completely take this function and find a best-in-class opportunity and hire EventsNoire to handle it and not even worry about it ever being in-house?
Yeah, I agree with that philosophy. I think it's understanding what are the goals of your overall project, and do you have the right people in place to achieve it? If you find that you don't, I too have clients where it's like, okay, how can we'll bring you in. We want you to upscale, and this might be a long-term position, and that's totally great and totally fine. I'm happy to help get you started and get you on the roll. To your point, outsourcing does not have to be forever. We are here to help make your lives easier. So I think it's really for associations, if you want to determine what you should outsource, what are the goals? Like, start from all of our conversations. What is it that we want to achieve? And then do we have the people to get there? If you do, then maybe you can keep it in-house. But if you find that you don't, or you find there might be some weak spots or places you want to grow, I definitely would consider outsourcing. And then also thinking strategically and creatively about how you're outsourcing. To Dana's point, it doesn't mean you have to just outsource. You can outsource coaching to upskill your staff so that they're also getting the support that they need, that they can grow and own this project in the future. So it doesn't have to be completely transactional either when it comes to outsourcing. It can definitely be something that allows for growth within the organization too.
Yeah.
I think that's representative of just the way that humans are working now. Like, this is a societal shift that we're seeing, right? And it's no longer just I hire these 100 people to do this job, and they come to the office every day, and they all have to live with, within 50 miles of this spot, right? I mean, clearly we've seen the borders of everything open up, and that's the way of work now. And outsourcing for associations and the study, I think, are really recognizing that is the way of work, and figure out as an association leader how that's going to work for your organization, how that's going to run for your organization.
Yeah.
And absolutely. To not be controversial, but to this point, I find that really any job that might considered to be a full-time remote job is a job that I would also consider to be a consultant role, because there are also full-time consultants. So that is still an opportunity too, where you're just maybe not paying the additional benefits, which could be a cost savings to your organization. And so I think that's something to also consider strategically. If you're willing to hire someone that's remote full-time, what exactly to me is that difference between hiring a consultant to manage this role? That's definitely a conversation and a strategy that I've been also looking at.
One of the stats I saw was that outsourcing across the US, companies, not sector specific, it's growing at almost 10% annually.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So having this like comparison set, right? Like, that's what we want to create for people, is this comparison set where they can look at this and say, okay, organizations that have X number of members in this revenue category are outsourcing these types of functions. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Let's look at it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think some of the factors that we're also asking is around budget too, because I think that's something that people don't know as well. Like, how much do I spend on hiring Inktide Solutions? What does that look like if I bring them on as a partner? And something that we are trying to get data on as well is just what are the spending habits for those that are outsourcing? What does that look like? So that we can also try to normalize it to say, like, it's okay to just roll this into your budget as you're planning for your next fiscal year. Here's a line item that can just be consultants, and that you're prepared to say, an organization of this size with this budget outsources at this rate. Here we're rolling it in and it's ready. You have a foundational data to say this is normal, so that you can plan ahead rather than you need it and be like, oh, where is this money coming from? We don't have it. It's not in the budget. We have to slash here, here, here. I think that's going to be really helpful for the data that we get from this too, for budget planning in the future.
I think it's a good time to do like an assessment of, does this belong with this staff person, or does this belong being outsourced or given to, an AI tool or something?
I agree. I think that's what I would say as well. It's going back to identifying what the goals are and where are we? Like, where are we now, and where is it that we want to go? And what do we need, or do we have everything that we need to bridge that gap? And if we find that we are missing something, can we fill that with getting some resources outsourced, and also just being willing to have the conversation? I think that's also a great step. I'm always happy to chat with someone if you're considering wanting to outsource events or outsource anything. I'm always just willing to chat about things in general, to have a conversation with trusted minds to say, this is something you want to do, and get others' advice. You might find that if you're talking to other association executives, they might have done that exact thing, and they can help you through what that process was like for them. So having a conversation as well.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.